Hello, you watch Afghan News with Mohsen Jamal. Several insurgents were killed and detained during joint operations in different parts of the country over the past 24 hours. The International Security Assistance Force said on Sunday a combined Afghan ISAF force pursued a Taliban leader blamed for heading militant operations in northern Saripur province, having ties to foreign fighters in suicide training camps in Sayad district. During the search of a compound, the soldiers engaged armed individuals, resulting in numerous insurgents killed. One of the rebels died as a result of detonating a suicide vest, ISAF said, adding multiple rocket-propelled grenades and AK-47s were recovered. In the north, Afghan coalition forces detained a militant facilitator in Baghlan-e-Jadid district of Baghlan province. The man allegedly operates for the Taliban and the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan. Two suspected insurgents were captured in 1 ton of heroin base destroyed in Washir district of southern Helmand province, according to the force, accusing the detainee of planning attacks against coalition forces and facilitating weapons and homemade bomb materials throughout the district. Elsewhere in the south, the Taliban facilitator was detained along with several suspects in Panjwai district of Kandahar province. Swedish King Carl Gustaf has just visited Swedish troops in Afghanistan secretariat for several days, and he left Afghanistan to return to Sudan on Saturday. According to Swedish newspaper Expressen, the king visited Mazar-e-Sharif, where 500 Swedish troops have a home base, and also the newly built base monitor in the Shiberhan province, where the country's foreign minister Carl Bildt had recently been. Bertit Turner, royal press officer, said that the king left for Afghanistan on Thursday and boarded a plane Saturday afternoon back to Sudan. The trip was kept in secret because of the security situation in Afghanistan. The king traveled with his chief of staff and a night. Crown Princess Victoria visited the Swedish contingent in Afghanistan over a year ago. It is the king's first visit to soldiers in Afghanistan. King's view is that the Swedish mission in Afghanistan is complex, but with the goal to create stability and security in the country. Renewed push for oil port of Brega comes as Gaddafi regime denies using cluster bombs on the base city of Misrata. Libyan rebels seeking to overthrow long-time leader Muammar Gaddafi have advanced from Ajdabiya toward the oil port town of Brega in the country's east, following NATO airstrikes along the coastal road on Saturday. Anti-Gaddafi forces said they had reached the edges of the oil town, bringing engineers with them to repair the damaged oil infrastructure. The battle for territory in Libya's east left 6 anti-Gaddafi fighters dead and 16 wounded on Saturday. Meanwhile, anti-aircraft fire was heard in the skies above the capital Tripoli on Saturday, and Libyan state TV said NATO airstrikes targeted Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. Also, the city of Misrata, Libya's third largest city, continued to come under bombardment, with food industry facilities reportedly damaged. A main opposition party heads to Saudi Arabia to discuss transition of power with Gulf ministers as protests continue. Yemen's joint meeting parties, an opposition coalition formed in 2002, has said it would send a delegation to Saudi Arabia on Sunday to discuss with Gulf Arab ministers the transition of power in their country, as thousands rallied to demand Ali Abdullah Saleh, the veteran president, to step down. Opposition leaders previously refused to join Gulf-mediated talks with Saleh's representatives, saying they wanted to force him out within 2 weeks because the Gulf plan did not include a quick or clear timetable for the transition of power. The youth movement remains unwilling to take part in any talks before President Saleh's departure. The Gulf plan, announced a week ago, appeared to promise Saleh immunity from prosecution, an issue that had proved a stumbling block in earlier talks that stalled. Saleh accepted the Gulf talks framework the next day. An Egyptian court has dissolved the former ruling National Democratic Party and ordered its funds and property to be handed over to the government. The higher administrative court issued the order on Saturday, meeting one of the key demands of the protest movement that ousted former President Hosni Mubarak in February. Lawyers had raised a suit demanding the party's dissolution, accusing it of corruption. The NDP dominated Egyptian politics since it was set up by Mubarak's predecessor Anwar al-Sadat in 1978. Much of its senior leadership is now behind bars on suspicion of embezzlement. The move to dissolve NDP was the latest concession by just military rulers to demands of the protest movement, coming days after Mubarak and his sons were put under detention for investigation on allegations of corruption and involvement in the killing of protesters. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton met Japanese Prime Minister Naoto Kan on Sunday while on a brief visit to Tokyo as the country struggles to bring a nuclear crisis under control. Earlier on Sunday, after a meeting with her Japanese counterpart Takeaki Matsumoto, she pledged to continue to support Japan and urged the country to maintain its standing on the world stage despite the massive earthquake and tsunami which hit the country on March 11th and smashed a nuclear power plant. Washington has deployed thousands of troops plus military aircraft and Navy ships to help with relief work in the devastated northeastern part of the island nation, and Matsumoto said that while the relationship has faced rough patches before this disaster helped bring the two countries together. Clinton also said Japan and the United States had agreed to create a public-private partnership for reconstruction under the guidance of Japan's government, and that U.S. firms and organizations would begin discussing how they can support Japan as it comes through this crisis. Japan's March 11th quake and tsunami killed up to 28,000 people, crippled a nuclear power plant, and seriously rattled the world's third largest economy. Raul Castro, the Cuban president, has proposed term limits for Cuban politicians, a remarkable gesture on an island ruled for 52 years by him and his brother. Castro said politicians and other important officials should be restricted to 2 5-year terms, including the current president of the Council of State and his ministers. The proposal was made on Saturday at the opening of the Congress, where delegates are meeting to ratify sweeping economic reforms proposed last year. The 79-year-old president lamented the lack of young leaders in government, saying the country was paying the price for errors made in the past. Castro told delegates attending a crucial Communist Party summit that he would launch a systematic rejuvenation of the government. In the last but not the least, Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan looks set for a close race against ex-military ruler Muhammadu Buhari as results trickled in the end from a largely peaceful presidential election. Early results showed Goodluck Jonathan had done well in much of predominantly Christian southern Nigeria, including areas such as the most populous city of Lagos, where his ruling party had struggled in a parliamentary election a week ago. But first results from heavily Muslim northern states showed Muhammadu Buhari with a wide lead and a high turnout which could overweigh his lack of support in the south. Tensions reign high in the north as Buhari's followers feared an attempt to rig the vote count. To win in the first round, a candidate needs a simple majority and a quarter of the vote in 2/3 of the 36 states. There are more than 73 million registered voters in 120,000 polling stations. Final results could take days. International observers were positive about the elections. And that is all for now. Thanks for joining us.